Welcome to SI Now. It's Monday, February 13th. I'm Andrew Perloff, in today for Maggie Gray, along with NBC Sports Radio host Seth Everett. Seth, it's the first Monday where we're not breaking down football, so they brought in A-listers like us.
I know, but they told me Maggie would be here, so I'm out of here. I'm sorry.
Oh, come on.
I'm sorry.
You're right. I am no Maggie Gray.
Great. I'm sorry.
But, there's no football, but we have a ton to talk about. Coming up in today's show, we'll take a look at how protest has become a commercial venture for the athletes and the brands they represent. But we'll start with the most interesting train wreck in sports. Now, Seth, we're both New York guys, the Knicks. Oh my gosh, it's safe to say the melodrama, no pun intended, coming out of the Garden of late, nothing short of outrageous. Last week, former Knick Charles Oakley escorted from the Garden by force, pushed to the ground, removed from the premises, banned for life. Now, after the fact, owner James Dolan fired his head of security, all the while defending his removal of Oakley and questioning his state of mind. Now, Seth, we've had a couple days to reflect on it. It hasn't gotten any less crazy, has it?
No, it's just the bizarre, because yesterday the Knicks are on national television. They're bringing in former Knick players, not even greats. Vin Baker was there, and all to prove that former Knicks like Madison Square Garden. I'm sorry, but this doesn't make any sense, and the whole thing seems forced.
Yeah, I mean, it's James Dolan, basically. This is Jim Dolan from years. You go back through every regime, Isaiah Thomas, Larry Brown. Now Phil Jackson comes in, of course not the coach, to be president. Nothing seems to work with this guy. Did it all start there?
Well, I just think that what happened with Oakley is kind of a microcosm of what people are looking for from their franchises. You want to represent a franchise that you can be proud of. You buy their jerseys, you buy their tickets, and this doesn't turn into that. This turns into the exact opposite, because what's happened as a result now, you're almost embarrassed to say that you're a Knick fan.
Oh, yeah. I'd rather say I'm a Net fan, and they're no good at all. Actually, I'm a fan of neither.
I'm not going to. These opinions I cannot coerce with.
Oh, okay. Well, let's face it, it's not a great time to be a New York basketball fan of any kind. Now, Oakley was charged with 3 counts of assault and 1 count of trespass. But has Oakley, his name and his person, been defamed by Madison Square Garden, the New York Knicks, and their owner, James Dolan? Sports Illustrated legal analyst Michael McCann joins us now to discuss this and more. Now, Michael, on what grounds could Charles Oakley make a legitimate case for defamation against the Knicks?
Sure, Andrew. So he could say that when Dolan went on the Michael Kay show and said that Charles Oakley is abusive, that's a pretty damning characterization. And Dolan also implied that Oakley has a drinking problem. He said he may be alcoholic. He also referenced people who are drinking too much being exited from games, that basically it was depicting Oakley as somebody who may or was drinking, and that led to his outburst. So what Oakley could say is, look, I'm not abusive. I'm certainly not an alcoholic. You said I was in front of a national audience, and you have defamed my character. You slandered me. Not only that, Andrew, he could also sue the Knicks themselves for that statement that they released in the aftermath of him being thrown out of the game, where they said he could use help. Again, it's this language that sort of suggests that there's something mentally or substance-wise wrong with him. And if those statements are untrue, that would be grounds for defamation.
So do you think he has a good case, Michael, or is this something that, he would do maybe because he's in his own legal trouble, maybe it's sort of a countersuit, or do you think that he could actually win this?
I think there's a chance he could win, especially because Dolan called him abusive. I mean, that was not, Dolan didn't temper his words. He did when he talked about alcohol in Oakley, but he called him abusive. Now, Dolan could say, well, look, he was just arrested for assault and trespass. Obviously, he's abusive. So there's a bit of a defense for Dolan, but put it in front of a New York jury, a jury of maybe people that are Knicks fans, that are unhappy with the Knicks and that might remember Oakley for his great contributions to the franchise, including helping them get to the '94 NBA Finals. You never know what would happen. It certainly could allow Oakley to sort of strike back at the Knicks, and Dolan, I'm sure he's pretty upset about what's taken place, and he is going to have a press conference sometime this week.
Oh, 1994. When basketball was fun again. Dolan's now surrounding himself with all kinds of former players. Is this just PR, or is there some legal reason to bring in Latrell Sprewell, Vin Baker, and Kenny Walker?
Well, Seth, it could be a legal reason, but I think it's mostly about PR. It's really about saying, look, I'm not a bad guy. Former players like me. Something's wrong with Oakley. It's not about me. It's about him. Though I don't really think it has any legal value in terms of the comments that he made on the Michael Kay show. The fact that other former players can show up without being thrown out doesn't really impact whether or not Oakley was defamed. So I don't see it as anything much more than a PR move. And I don't know what necessarily it accomplishes. You both had talked about that earlier.
Thanks a lot, Michael. We'll follow this closely. Now, Seth, in typical Knicks fashion, with everything going wrong, they go out and they beat the outstanding San Antonio Spurs on Sunday evening on national television. And Carmelo Anthony hits big shots at the end. Isn't that so Knicks?
Yes, and Carmelo Anthony did win the national championship for Syracuse, which I just can't get out of my head. The fact of the matter is it's the last home game before the trade deadline, and as a result, there's the thought that it might have been his last performance. If it was, he certainly gave it his all, but the reality is I don't think he's getting traded. He has that no-trade clause. I don't know how much they are trying to push him out. I wouldn't be surprised if he's still there.
I think he's going to get traded. I mean, there's so many teams that need him more than the Knicks. Take the Clippers, for example. They could use a clutch shooter like that. He has a no-trade clause, so he can be picky here, and that sort of works against the Knicks. But come on, it's not just New Yorkers. Everybody in the country wants Carmelo off of this team. How can they make this work?
Well, the idea, though, is that if you have a no-trade clause, the player holds all the leverage.
Sure.
So the Knicks can't trade him. If they're trading him to a team that Carmelo says he'll go to, that team has all the leverage. So the Knicks aren't getting the return on their investment. So to me, at this stage of the game, I think they keep him.
Do we have any power to force a trade, though? Because if we do, we got to move on.
If we had any power, would we be here?
Probably not. So the images are coming in from Arizona and Florida. Spring training is here. Pitchers and catchers reporting this week.
Don't forget the catchers.
Yes. Recently, SI Now's Matt Stryker spoke to the reigning NL MVP Kris Bryant, courtesy of Toyota. Let's go places.
All right, Kris, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. The MLB has proposed 2 rule changes to the Players Union, but the one I'd like to touch on is a strike zone change that would move the defined strike zone up from below the kneecap to the top of the hitter's knee, with the idea being to produce more balls in play with a raised strike zone. How much of an advantage would this new strike zone provide to the hitter?
It'd be huge. I mean, especially for me, the taller players, I feel like those, those balls that are in the lower part of the strike zone are extremely tough for me to hit, just being so tall. And that's kind of why I crouch down in my stance the way I do. So, there's been some talk about it in the past. And, I think with more and more, confrontations with, umpires and stuff, I've never been the guy to do that. But, just looking around the league, I think the umpires do a good job of, calling the zone the way they're supposed to right now. So, that's going to be an adjustment on them, too, if the rule passes. So it'll be, adjustment for everybody involved, and it'll certainly take some time to get used to.
All right, well, this past season, you won the World Series, the NL MVP award, and you even got married. Congratulations. It is certainly the year of Kris Bryant. We are making you our adrenaline performer presented by Toyota. Let's go places. The start to your career could not have been better, but how do you not get complacent and continue to improve?
I've been getting that question a lot. Everybody's like, where do you go from here? It's been a great first 2 years for me, but I want to continue to get better and continue to, be the best I can be. I hate to be average. I don't want to be, like I said, don't want to be complacent at all. So as good as, this last year was for me, there's still some areas that I would love to get better at, and improvements are exciting to me, and I would love to, just learn from them. And
all right, well, it's hard to escape comebacks in sports. Recently, the Cavaliers came back from 3-1. The Patriots just pulled off the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history. And of course, your Cubs came back from a 3-1 deficit to win the World Series. as sports fans, we are starting to get spoiled, but how difficult is it to pull off a comeback on the biggest stage in sports?
Yeah, I mean, just thinking back to, that whole experience and just being down in the position that we were, and the Indians having the bullpen that they have and the starting, with Corey Kluber, it's easy to kind of look at it and just kind of give up. I mean, you kind of see just how strong they are and how dominant they've been. But I think last year we won 3 games in a row 17 times. So, the big thing was getting to Game 7, and if we were able to get there, anything could happen. And obviously, anybody who watched the game, it was probably one of the best games, that they've seen in a long time.
Absolutely. And now today you're joining us on behalf of Topps Baseball Cards. Can you tell us a little bit about your involvement with Topps?
Yeah, I mean, I've recently extended my partnership with them. Being the #1 card is definitely a huge honor for me, and I'm so humbled by it to be in the same sentence as Derek Jeter and Mike Trout and all those the guys that came before me. So extremely humbling, and I'm just excited to kind of continue my partnership with them and sign many more cards.
So when young Kris Bryant would tear open a baseball card pack and eat that gum, who was the one player that you hoped you had in your Topps pack?
Well, my favorite player growing up was Barry Bonds, so I wanted anything with Barry Bonds. I had a poster in my room of him. I didn't try to copy his swing, but yeah, I mean, I think I even got to the point where I made my mom go buy me, obviously for my birthday, she went and bought me an autograph, Barry Bonds ball. So that was the one guy that I kind of grew up wanting.
Well, now your name will be mentioned with his. We appreciate your time. Good luck in the upcoming season, Kris Bryant.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Great stuff from Matt and Kris. Now, Seth, who was your baseball card?
Don Mattingly, growing up.
I was Mike Schmidt. Now, let's go back to this strike zone rule change. Can you explain to me what MLB is trying to achieve?
Well, what they're trying to establish is that by going now above the knee, you're trying to make hitters more honest. And essentially, they don't like it when batters strike out looking. They're trying to get more swings. The problem is they're not productive swings. They're swings that are literally swinging for the fences. Unfortunately, in baseball, you've seen a world where young players are being taught to swing at everything and try to hit home runs, knowing that a strikeout is just part of your percentages. I don't understand that logic. If you look at the proposed strikeout, if anything is down low, you're going to have to swing. But none of that teaches players to shorten their swings. If you shorten your swing, you can perpetuate rallies. Rallies are fun in baseball. Rallies are what keep pace of play. No one goes to a movie and says, this movie was way too long. They say the movie was good or bad. In a baseball game, if there's a good pace to it, even if it's long, it's fine. It's entertainment.
So basically, this is not even going to speed up games. It's going to achieve. It reminds me of the NFL kickoff rule. They changed the kickoff rule, and now teams are sort of kicking it shorter, so there are more returns. Will it be completely counterintuitive?
If it teaches hitters to swing more, then you have more chances for contact.
Yeah.
I just think you have more chances for swings and misses. You've seen how hard some of these pitchers throw?
Oh, yeah. Now, Seth, you're a baseball guy. Is any of this really going to make a difference? Tempo? I know, like, the issues in league offices about speeding up the game for the younger audience. Is there anything they can do with the rules, or are they just sort of grasping at straws here?
Well, I like the idea that Rob Manfred is going to take every suggestion and look at it. What he's suggesting is, right now you're laying off that low pitch, and now you're going to have to be more honest, and you're going to have to swing at that low pitch. Okay, great. That doesn't necessarily mean more contact is being made. I just think, and I talked to Terry Collins recently about this, I just think that when you're dealing with a sport that allows strikeouts so much, I mean, you saw Kris Bryant's teammate, Anthony Rizzo, struck out over 100 times. You see players make all-star teams that strike out over 100 times. I just think there's too many strikeouts. And yes, everybody loves a good 2-1 pitcher's duel. That's not what this is. This is too many strikeouts. And, you know, it used to be when you and I were playing Little League, if we struck out, we were embarrassed.
Totally.
You were totally embarrassed. You put your head down. You didn't want to face your teammates. Now guys don't care. Yeah. And I think that's the thing that's missing.
Yeah, I was very selective. I would strike out looking in T-ball. I was so selective. Now, one athlete who could be affected by these rule changes if they are actually implemented, and he makes it to the bigs, don't laugh here, Tim Tebow. Now, recently, Maggie caught up with the Mets hopeful in Houston.
Heisman Trophy winner Tim Tebow, great to see you. When you're at an event like this, you're walking around Radio Row of the Super Bowl, how often are people asking you if you're going to make an NFL comeback?
You get it quite a bit. But they also ask a lot, how's spring training? Are you getting ready for it? Are you excited? So you kind of get everything.
Yeah. Now that you're just a little bit removed from your last NFL game, how would you describe it, your pro career?
I think it was full of a lot of highs and lows. I was so thankful for every opportunity that I got. I think the run that we were able to go on in Denver was very special. I have a lot of great memories from that, and there's so many different things that I learned from. Overall, it's just a great experience.
Some of the teams that you were a part of, you were a part of a team that's playing in the Super Bowl on Sunday,
Yeah.
and that was the New England Patriots. And I'm curious if that one was one of the tougher sort of losses or cuts to take, considering,
sure.
I mean, Bill Belichick's kind
Yeah.
of known for resurrecting careers, and you knew
No.
Josh McDaniels from Denver.
Yeah, I was very close with those guys and still feel pretty close with them. And it was a great opportunity for me. It was a great situation. And, for me, I thought, hey, I'm going to come in and learn from Tom Brady, and he's going to, retire. And I don't know if he'll ever retire, but he's going to retire.
Eventually, at
he's
some
gonna
point, we
retire
believe
in a
he
couple
will.
years, and I'll take over, and we'll win Super Bowls, and it'll be amazing. But that's not.
Oh, that's what you thought?
That's not the plan that God had for me.
Okay.
And so, you just learn from it and you adjust, and it's not always easy. And that definitely wasn't easy, but it was, something that you learn from. And so for me, I've tried to learn from every situation, especially the tough ones.
So now that you are pursuing a professional baseball career, would it mean just as much to get to the majors to win a World Series as it would to win a Super Bowl?
I don't know. I think it would probably mean more.
Really?
Yeah, I really do. I think, because of the ups and the downs and the just the battle of picking something up that you haven't done in 12 years, I think it would mean more.
The professional opinion about your baseball prowess is incredibly vast. You have some people who say you are going to make it, you belong there in a major league system, and you have others who say you don't look comfortable on the diamond and you shouldn't be playing baseball. How do you feel out there?
Well, I feel like I've probably always had some people that have supported me in sports and some people that have criticized me, and I don't really listen to it, and I'm pretty thankful that I don't have to listen to it. And I think for me, it's just every day, it's playing something that I love, it's pursuing, it's getting better every day. I think if you look at just where I was at, in fall ball, you can see that from the start. Started off, kind of rusty, slow, and then after that, got better and better every week, and finished feeling very confident. So I'm excited about going into spring ball.
One of the great things about Super Bowl Sunday is clearly the food.
Yes.
Guacamole, my favorite.
It is.
You're here talking about avocados from Mexico.
Yes, it's something that has been part of my life for a long time, and trying to be healthy is, for me, it's a way of life. It's not just something I do for sports. And one of those great snacks that can be totally healthy is avocados. You can do it so many different ways. Guacamole, which is my favorite. Smoothies, just straight avocado, so many different ways. And for me, they're a superfood, and it's been one of my biggest things on my diet because I'm on a ketogenic diet, which is a high-fat diet, and avocados are the best fat you can get.
Tim Tebow,
Thank
really
you so
appreciate
much.
your time.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
God bless. Thank
Enjoy
you.
the game, too.
Thank you.
I try to go weeks without thinking about, let alone questioning, Tim Tebow's intentions, but I'm also the kind of guy who tries to look at things at face value. How in the world did Maggie keep a straight face when he said the World Series over the Super Bowl? Andrew, we listen to athletes all the time. This is not honest. It's not happening.
Do you think that Tim Tebow knows it's not happening? These athletes are supremely confident. Maybe he thinks he can do it.
I was a guy who covered Alex Rodriguez for years, almost a decade, and I always could tell when he was talking right through you. That's the feeling I get. I mean, no offense to all the Tebow fans that are going to now get on me on Twitter, but the fact of the matter is that he just doesn't come off as believable. And why would a guy who played football his entire life not be honest and say, I dream of playing the Super Bowl? It's impossible.
On Saturday night, the UFC was front and center in my home borough of Brooklyn. Anderson Silva won his first bout since 2012, and Holly Holm lost a decision that could have given her the women's featherweight belt, a title seemingly created for her. When it was all said and done, UFC President Dana White was not happy with the referee.
Yeah, I mean, everybody was blowing me up on the phone. What's wrong with this ref? What's wrong with this ref? And, you know, what's wrong with this ref is he doesn't have big fight experience like that, you know. None of these guys do in this state yet, and they should have had one of the experienced MMA refs in there reffing that main event.
The host of Fox and FS1's UFC Tonight, Karyn Bryant, joins us now with her reaction to all of this and much more. Karyn, how you doing?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me on today.
Now, after UFC 208 concluded, Dana White stated it was not one of their better events. How would you evaluate what went down on Saturday night?
You know, I would have to agree with him in a way. I think part of the problem, sometimes part of the lukewarm feeling people get is when there's a show that doesn't have a lot of finishes. And the only finish we saw was Jacare Souza, which we all knew was coming. Like, that's the great thing about a Jacare fight. It's not if he's going to finish the dude, it's when he is. So it's kind of great like that. So he delivered. You know, there were a lot of close fights. And so that means a lot of decisions. So that kind of gets people kind of feeling like, I don't know, we want to see finishes. But also the fact that some of the decisions that were made, people didn't 100% agree with. Anderson Silva is a perfect example of that. So I feel like it was more about the judging and less about the actual performance of the fighters. It was, you kind of feel like when the judges don't get it right, or when a lot of people kind of feel like something is wrong with the decision, it's hard for people to feel excited, because you're kind of going to walk away and go, yeah, but did that guy really win? I don't know. I think the judges, you know, had way too much to say about it. So I feel like that's probably what it was.
Now, Holly Holm lost for the third time in a row. Ronda Rousey may never fight again. These are stars who've helped grow the sport. How concerned should the UFC be?
You know, concerned to a degree, I suppose. You know, Cris Cyborg was really the one who Dana kind of initiated the 45 division for, and she's currently under suspension, under review, so that was a little bit of a hiccup. So we do need some stars, certainly, but, you know, obviously there's Conor McGregor. Conor can't fight all the time. There are other really dynamic fighters, but the trick is getting them enough publicity, getting people familiar enough with them to get the butts in the seats. But to me, the product is still great. You know, the fights are still great. It's bigger than just one person.
Now, taking a step back to the controversy, Jermaine appeared to have some late hits. How loud was it there? She said afterwards that she couldn't really hear the end of the round. Is that a legitimate excuse, or did the referee just get it wrong?
Well, to be honest, I was in the studio in L.A., so I wasn't in the building. Okay. I did hear that it was loud, but from my fighter friends, obviously, they say that, you know, the bell is pretty distinct. You can hear it. But here's the thing. The way that Holly was fighting and kind of blitzing at the end of the round, trying to steal the round, it does cause a reaction. And so it's not surprising that Jermaine was also rushing back at her late, because it turned into this fast and furious thing. Now, I didn't like the late hits. I think after this, you know, the second one, there should have been a point deduction. No way do I think Jermaine is a dirty fighter. I don't think that was her intention. I don't think they were on purpose. I'm more likely to believe in the caught up in the moment element, but at the same time, you do hear the bell.
The UFC is now a brand. There's no secret about that. But the sport's biggest individual brand is, as you mentioned, Conor McGregor. So when can we expect to see him fight again?
Not soon enough. I love that man. That guy is so fun to watch. You know, that after he fought at 205 at Madison Square Garden, when we were talking to him afterwards, he said he was going to take some time off and he didn't want to fight again before his baby was born. You know, his girlfriend is pregnant. And but then Conor didn't even really know when that was going to be. So that was sort of funny. At first, I think he thought it was March, and then it turned out it was going to be May. And so there was a moment where we thought, okay, we wouldn't see him for a while. But then, you see him posting, video clips of training and he's, calling out Floyd and all of that. So I feel like if the right opportunity came up before May, we would see him then. And, but, he stays busy. He kind of deserves a break. It's not that he doesn't.
Karyn, now in addition to your day job covering mixed martial arts, you are about to go where catfights could become the new reality. This week, you serve as a reporter for the 141st Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show, beginning tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern on FS1. Karyn, you must be really excited.
I am. You know what? I've done so many different kinds of things over the course of my career. I've covered music, I've covered entertainment, all kinds of different things, game shows, this, that, the other thing, but I've never done the dog show. And I'm so excited. It's one of those things that I watch every year. And so now to be part of it is really going to be something special. I just, part of me feels like I know what to expect from having seen it so many times, but I feel like once I get there, I'm going to be blown away by just how intense it is and how special those dogs actually are. Like, I really, truly feel like these dogs are going to have a different kind of aura about them, because they're winners. They're all winners. I think it's going to be great. I really am excited.
But this year's show, the dog show, includes felines for the first time. Yeah. So speaking as a dog person, should they be worried about the 9 live critters that they're going to steal the thunder?
Well, they were just in things over the weekend. They're not going to be on any part of what we're doing tonight and tomorrow. But yeah, they did allow them in. I'm a dog lover much more than a cat lover. But yeah, I think it's interesting to have them in the mix now. They also allow mixed breed dogs can do agility and some of the other things. So I just think they are trying to make it more inclusive. And because people come to the city, week in advance, they have all these different things for people to get up close and personal with the animals. So, I think in that respect, yeah, it's great to add the cats. But I don't know that we'd ever really see cats trotting around
at a dog show,
being shown in the same manner. That would be pretty funny.
Karyn, it's quite a ride to go from UFC to the dog show. Thank you very much for filling us in on both.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. This is going to be a lot of fun. Great to talk to you guys.
In this day and age, everybody with a Facebook or Twitter account seems to have an opinion on the political climate. From star athletes to average fans to major corporations, everyone has something to say. Shoemaking juggernaut Nike dropped a new ad over the weekend that seemed to make a statement and still has the online world abuzz.
Is this the land history promised? Here, within these lines. On this concrete court. This patch of turf. Here, you're defined by your actions. Not your looks or beliefs. Equality should have no boundaries. The bonds we find here should run past these lines.
It's been a long time coming.
Opportunity should not discriminate. The ball should bounce the same for everyone.
Change gonna come.
Worth should outshine color.
Oh, yes,
If we can be equals here,
we can be equals everywhere.
change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will.
Now, Seth, it's a beautiful ad, and I happen to agree strongly with the message, but I can't help but walk away from it feeling, I don't know, not dirty the word, but the commercialization of protests sort of bothers me. I'm not sure I want to hear this from corporations who are selling sneakers.
I just think the kinds of protests that we've been looking at that we're impressed with are things that are organic. It's almost like when you're doing a radio show. You don't want the contrived bit, you want the natural one. And this doesn't seem that. You have to wonder how quickly this was put together. You wonder about just whether or not everybody got on board and had the same message on the outset. With some of this shot, they had a different plan and they changed it because of what's in the news. It just raises more questions than answers.
Well, the thing about it's so safe. I mean, when you think about who they're selling sneakers to, probably not a lot of Trump voters because it's a younger audience, many who probably aren't old enough to vote, and many at that age who probably didn't vote for Trump. So I don't think there's any danger there. And, you know, I think about Muhammad Ali. When Ali passed away last year, it kicked off a lot of protests. LeBron at the ESPYs and Colin Kaepernick. But what Muhammad Ali did was so, for lack of a better word, dangerous. You know, that was a brave move. Now, of course, I think we're being too critical in a sense. I do like the message, but it's safe. You know, LeBron, I hate to say it, doesn't risk $1 by doing this Nike commercial.
No, and I just get the sense that when you're talking about making something like this, you're trying to go to the heartstrings of people that, you know, they watch Meet the Press on Sunday and they're following all the news during the week and they're seeing these things. And I think that's the target demo. But in reality, the target demo is not watching the news. They're only following Twitter and Facebook, and the kids aren't even doing Facebook. It's just for us old guys now. So it's just a change in what you'd think a Nike ad would target. It just didn't seem like that's what their demo would do.
Yeah, are we being cynical here? I mean, LeBron and Kevin Durant and Nike itself have given money to causes.
We weren't asked to be in the commercial, so.
Yeah. And what impact do you think over the years, you know, seeing African-American athletes excel? Obviously, I would argue that race in sports is probably the most high-profile arena in the public discourse where we talk about race. We don't talk about race in politics. We don't really talk about it in entertainment. We talk about it in sports. So I do think that it is a topic that is germane to sports.
Well, it's one of the things that, you know, Jackie Robinson Day, which is coming up in a couple of months, April 15th, which every baseball player wears the number 42. And I've always had a big argument that I don't think every player should wear it. I think any player who wants to wear it should wear it. And what they should be required to do is do either a radio, a television, or a scoreboard interview and explain what the significance is to them. I think that more discord, it gets people thinking.
Yeah.
And that can be, especially in a sports arena where you're out socially with friends, you don't go to the ball games by yourself. Get it so that people are talking about sensitive issues in a positive light.
Which I think this commercial does. I just feel like I don't really want to see it in the form of a commercial. Like you said, I want to see it more organic.
Right. I just don't want it to be something that there's been a bunch of protests 8 days ago and now suddenly there's ads. Because now I'm starting to be more skeptical than if I had just seen it, you know, in a normal progression.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you, Seth. And that's going to do it for today's edition of SI Now. Seth and I will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Houston Rockets guard Eric Gordon will join us. You won't want to miss that. And until then, stick with SI.com for all the latest news. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SI Now Live. Have a great day.